All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is daily vlog number 37, I think. Yeah, that sounds good. So, today, I'm going to take a drink. Today, I want to talk about virtual tabletops. Mostly because I got an email today from Renegade Studios, because I'm on their email list, because I buy a shit ton of stuff from them. And one of the things that they announced is the Transformers RPG either currently has or is going to have an official module for Foundry virtual tabletop. And so that sent me on a bit of a dive to kind of look into Foundry itself. I think I've mentioned before, I have tried Foundry. They have a demo of it to kind of, or at least they used to. I don't know if they have it anymore. I've tried Foundry before, years ago. And to me, the interface in and of itself was overly complex and was not intuitive in any way, shape, or form. And it is ungodly expensive. To the point where, at that point, it was prohibitively expensive for me, and I never would have been able to use it to run any of my games. That being said, I know a lot of people that swear by Foundry. Foundry, apparently, the current version... I'm going to try this one more at a time. The current version of Foundry that's sold on Steam is called Foundry Unity, which I'm going to assume means that it uses the Unity engine for it. I'm going to assume the earlier version either used their own engine or used a different engine, and that's why they now call it Foundry Unity. I actually have no idea. Again, I have not kept up with Foundry in a long time because, again, it's just not my cup of tea. But due to the fact that the most popular content on this channel, aside from a few of the kind of weird things that just go viral for a little bit here, is my Essence 20 content. And I'm not upset about that. I love Essence 20. I think it's really great. I'm not particularly fond of how much of Essence 20 there is, because keeping up with it is nearly impossible. Especially for someone on disability. But it's a great system. Every time they publish a book, for the most part, I think it becomes a better system, with a few rare exceptions. I've mentioned in a couple of my in-depth reviews, I'm not particularly fond of just how complex it's becoming, because when it first came out, it was a very rules-light system, which I have come to realize that I prefer now. It's not that I can't play a very rules-heavy system, or a really gonna try this again, or a really crunchy system. I just find that getting to play the characters that I want requires such an incredible time investment into a rules-heavy system like Pathfinder, or if we want to go real crazy, GURPS. Or any of the kind of D20 based systems in general. It takes me too long to have to learn the system to create the characters that I want to play. And in a rules light system like Open Legend or the Cypher system, or how Essence 20 used to be, it was significantly easier for me to create kind of interesting, unique style characters. And now with all of the additional systems that they've kind of loaded on to the core Essence 20 system, it has become extremely complex. Not to the point where I think it's been over-designed, like I believe Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Pathfinder 2nd Edition is definitely over-designed. It's not a think, it's a fact. So I don't think it's crossed quite into the realm of that, but it's getting really, really close. But for a system like that, having something that automates a lot of it is really, really nice. I've mentioned this many times. I run all of my RPGs exclusively online, and currently I exclusively use Roll20. I've been using Roll20 for at least 8 years, I want to say. When I first started running RPGs online, I didn't use a virtual tabletop. I just ran it over Google. Google Plus Hangouts, actually. Which isn't a thing anymore, but those of you that have been around on the internet for a little bit might remember Google Plus Hangouts. But I very quickly started using Roll20 for the sole reason that it was free for me and it was free for other people. And for me, that is the biggest motivator when I'm recommending or when I'm using something for a non-paid RPG that I run. If I have to go through the effort of either buying a $150 license or forcing them to buy a $40 license just to play in my game, I'm not okay with that. No matter how good the game is, it creates a barrier to entry because playing RPGs is already not a cheap hobby. If you want to keep up with a single RPG, I'm not even talking about the fact that, again, I collect RPGs. I've got like 30 or 40 of them on my hard drive right now. I've got, as you can see, I've got books there. I've got books next to me. I've got books over there. I love RPGs. And I love collecting them and learning new ones. And it's really, really fun for me. That being said, even just sticking to a single RPG gets very prohibitively expensive very quickly. And then if you combine that with having to pay for a license for a game just to be able to play, it just is a huge turn off for me. So the video I want to make today, I had a couple different ideas going around. I will probably, one of the other ideas is I had this, I pitched to, can't remember who it was. One of the, I think it was Encounter Roleplay. They used to allow people to pitch ideas to for games to them. And they would host it. You would stream it on their platform. But you would write it, and like you had most of the control over it. And so I came up with a pitch for a really, really interesting RPG that at the time I was planning on using Open Legend for, because that was the system that I was I was fixated on. But yeah, I think today I'm going to just talk about virtual tabletops, and that will be another video. So virtual tabletops. There is currently a lot of different ones that exist, and oh wait, maybe that's what it was. I think the one that I was familiar with was Fantasy Grounds, and Foundry is another one. Oh, that's what it was. That makes sense. All right, so what I want to talk about today, I want to talk about various virtual tabletops, the benefits and drawbacks of the various ones, and hopefully give you guys a better idea, first of all, why I enjoy Roll20 so much. And second of all, give you guys a better idea of the stuff that exists out there, because there's a lot of it out there. And again, I have an entire series I did when lockdowns first started about what you need to do to be able to run games online and have them feel as immersive as when you sit down at a table. And that series still exists. I think it's called, I can't remember what I called it. Something like Astral Protection or something like that. because I was banking on the idea that in a fantasy world, talking with someone as if you were in the same room with them from vast distances would involve mastering astral projection, I think is what it was called. It's still on this channel if you guys want to watch it. It did not get very popular for some bizarre reason. But I made an entire series talking about the things that you need to do to be able to run online and make it feel as immersive as running at a table. Because something that it's kind of an accepted fact amongst just the tabletop RPG community that in-person D&D is always better than online D&D. And big names in the community have parroted this as just objective fact. One of the biggest names, probably the biggest name, Matt Mercer and Critical Role have flat out, back when lockdowns first happened, they basically went on hiatus because they claimed that they couldn't create as quality a show if they were doing it online as they would be able to do if they were doing it in person. Which, in my humble opinion, and take this with a grain of salt, I am required to run online because I can't physically leave my house. So take this with a grain of salt. But I believe that sentiment is unbelievably false and is extremely ableistic. And I've said this many, many times but before, online D&D can be just as immersive and just as entertaining and just as amazing as in-person D&D is, but you have to use a different set of tools to do it. And I've made tons of videos talking about this to the topic. So today I just want to kind of cover a few of the larger virtual tabletops, talk about some of the things that people like about them, as far as I can tell, some of the things that are drawbacks to them, and hopefully give everyone here a little bit better idea of what's out there so that you guys can make your own decisions. Because there's, I kid you not, there's a ton of stuff out there. And there are a lot of them that I think are doing really, really great things, but they're coming into a small market. Because, again, I've mentioned this before, the tabletop RPG market is remarkably large, but if you compare it to literally any other market on the planet, it's tiny. And then you have to chop that down to the tabletop RPG market of people that actually want to play online, and that's a fraction of the market in and of itself. So it's a small market. It's a part of a small market, and there are already really well established people, companies in this market that are going to just drink up all of all the marketing and all of the publicity and things like that, and you are going to have an extremely difficult time getting people to hop onto a new thing. So there's a lot of really cool ones that are doing amazing things right now, and they're just not getting traction because nobody knows they exist. So hopefully this will help people to find some stuff out. So that being said, let's start off with the one that I'm most familiar with. Let's talk about Roll20. Roll20 is an online virtual tabletop. It's done entirely through a web browser. They do have an app, I believe, I believe it's on both Android and iOS. It may be on only one or the other. However, as long as you have something with a web browser, you can access the Roll20 app through the website. It's roll20.net. And again, I have been using this for close to a decade. I think it's only been like 8 or 9 years. I haven't been using it the entire time I've been running games, but it's been a lot of time. And I have seen it go from a really crappy, bare bones system to probably one of the easiest pick up and play virtual tabletops that currently exists. They're constantly adding new content. There is a thriving market on there for custom made content. You can publish your own things there. They have a partnership with the Dungeon Masters Guild where you can actually publish things on the Dungeon Masters Guild, and then as long as you convert it to the right file types and the right processes, which I don't understand how to do that, but it's possible, you can actually publish things that you publish on the Dungeon Masters Guild additionally on Roll20. So some of the things that I think are the absolute best about Roll20, first of all, it's 100% free. You do not need to spend a dime to be able to use Roll20. And for the vast majority of the time I've been here, I've only started spending money on Roll20 within the past, I want to say 6 months. Other than that, I have never spent a dime on Roll20. And I have run a shit ton of games on there. I've run a lot of D&D. I've run Open Legend. I've run the Cypher system. I've run the Power Rangers RPG. I've played Call of Cthulhu on there. Probably the greatest thing about Roll20 is how much free content there is on there that a lot of the competitors really can't compete with that. Do you want to play D&D 5th edition on Roll20? Congratulations. They have the entire SRD on there. So if you want to use their built-in character sheet and character creator software, which they have, you can. And you can use all the free content. If you want to use content from, like, you have the Dungeon Master's Guide or the Player's Handbook or anything in there, Roll20 makes it extremely easy to just type in your own options. You do not have to own a single thing on Roll20 to be able to use it on there. And there is so much custom content on Roll20 that's created by the people that use Roll20 that just for example, I'm going to create a new game. And one of the things that happens when you create a new game is you choose the character sheets that will be used for that game. And the default one that they have on here is D&D 5e by Roll20, and it looks identical to the original 5th edition D&D character sheets that are in the Player's Handbook, that if you download them from Wizards of the Coast website, that's the character sheet you're going to get. However, if we open it up and we go to the Dungeons and Dragons section, and I have to scroll through a shit ton of things to get to the Dungeons and Dragons section. Let's try D&D. So Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 edition. They have the D&D 3.5e character sheets. They have the 3.5e Adventure Cap. They have the 3.5e The Black Company. These are 3 different versions of character sheets you can use for D&D 3.5. If you want to play D&D 4th edition, they have a single character sheet. For 5th edition, they have D&D by Roll20. That is the official one. D&D 5e Community Chinese. D&D 5e Community Contributed. D&D 5e Darker Dungeons, D&D 5e Scrolls, D&D 5e Shapes, D&D 5e Adventures in Middle-earth. They have, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They have 7 different character sheets that you can use. And each one works a little bit differently. They're designed by different things. In addition to that, let's say none of the character sheets really work for you. If you have their, like, premium subscription, which I don't have. I got a free trial for their, like, starter subscription. That's only like $6 a month. And I never canceled it, and I may never cancel it at this point because I really like the additional stuff it gives me. Probably the most useful thing it gives me is it increases the amount of space I have to store things on Roll20. We'll talk about that in just a second. But if you get the one that's a step up, which I believe is like 11 or 12 bucks a month, so still not an exorbitant cost, you can make your own character sheets. You get access to the Roll20 API if you want to find ways to kind of link in with Roll20. For Zelda Universe's Tears of the Realm, the RPG that I run for them, Elias has created, not only has created the character sheets we use in there, rather he modified character sheets that already existed in there. But he also has been able to tie in the characters to our overlay so that we have character cards that will pull things directly from Roll20. Now, it's not using the API because that takes a lot of work and effort, and that's a goal we eventually have, but Elias is effectively teaching himself how to do this. But we are able to download things from it and then plug those directly into the overlay. So as far as being able to customize and create really interesting things in Roll20, it is incredible just how many options that exist. And like I said, most of these are 100% free. In addition to that, they have the Roll20 Marketplace, where you can buy official stuff. Like you can buy official Dungeons and Dragons books if you want to use, to be able to like, instead of having to type out your spell effects and everything yourself, you can drag and drop spell effects directly onto your character sheet right from the journal or whatever it's called. I'll open up one of my games right now just so I can remember what it's called. Compendium, there we go. You can drag it right from the compendium. And again, the compendium starts off with all of the SRD content, and it's actually in a remarkably nice layout. Like they've upgraded the UI and everything to where it's remarkably easy to read and look at, and yeah, it's really, really good, great. So if you buy additional books on there, instead of having to type everything yourself and copy it from PDFs or from your books or from D&D Beyond or any thing, you can just drag and drop, and it makes it very, very simple and easy. In addition to that, there's shit tons of custom content. One of the things that I started investing in is there are a lot of people that make tokens for the game. And the ones that I got a bit addicted to are animated tokens. When I was running my Fabula Ultima campaign, I wanted it to look very high quality. And so I went and I got Photoshop and I created my own overlays and things like that, which I'm still very proud of. I went through the time and effort of finding a website to create custom character portraits and character tokens for them that looked at that kind of 8/16-bit style. And then I went on and I found a bunch of animated pixel art enemy tokens, and I used them to inspire the creatures that I was going to be throwing at my players. And it was really cool. And the just sheer volume of stuff that exists on there. I found the clocks that I use on there. Those are something that was custom made by somebody in the community. And it cost me, I can't remember how much it cost me. I don't think it cost me much more than like $5 or $6 to get all the different clocks that I used for Fabula Ultima that I'm planning on using, or I have used in some of my D&D games. There's so many different things on there that I don't believe 100% exists on other platforms. And like I said, there's a lot of free content as well. Like there's just shit tons of stuff. The other thing that I really like about Roll20 is they do have free assets. That again you have to pay nothing for, and it's everything from tokens to be able to use for players, to be able to use for enemies, things like that. They have maps that you can use if you don't want to have to draw your own maps or anything. They have kind of pre-written maps, which are really, really nice. They have map tiles. They have objects like campfires and books and beds. So if you do put a map on there, but you want to have things, you want to have more than just like the base map, you can put your own little bits in there and design it all right there in the program. It's really, really nice. The other thing that I really, really like about Roll20 is they have what's called the jukebox. Jukebox is literally that. It's music. And you can upload your own stuff, which is great and fun. Or there's 3 different groups of music that is on there that is free for you to use. If you publish it or anything, some of them do have some copyright stuff you have to deal with. But for the most part, they have one section which is tabletop audio, which is effectively just ambiance stuff. Everything from battle music, ambiance, like, stuff that you can play when they're camping in the woods, stuff that's going to help immerse them. And there's tons of it. Just, I cannot tell you how many different things are on there because I've never actually looked at the entire list. But it's just shit tons of stuff. It's entirely free to use. The second thing they have is what's called battle bards, which is sound effects. Things like an acid blast spell or breaking a simple wooden shield if you want to have accents. And because the jukebox is connected to all of your players as well, anytime you play any of this music, your players hear it as well. So if you are narrating something and you want a sudden thunder crash to kind of surprise them, first things first, make sure you test the sound before you play it for your players, because they all tend to be very loud at the default volume. And if you don't test it and get it to the correct sound level, you're going to blow out all of your players' eardrums. So don't do that. But just tons and tons of stuff that you can use to, again, further immerse your characters and create this really cool soundscape. And then the final thing that they have on there is Incompetech. Incompetech is music that's written by this dude named Kevin MacLeod. He is a strong believer in the Creative Commons copyright license, and so literally every single song he has ever written, which are thousands, not kidding here, thousands of songs, he is released under a Creative Commons attribution license. And that's the only thing that gets a little bit tricky about using stuff from the jukebox on Roll20, is if you use anything by Kevin MacLeod, and you are broadcasting it in some way, you're streaming your game on Twitch or you're recording it and putting it on YouTube, you do have to have somewhere something that says, by the way, we used this particular song by Kevin MacLeod, and it has here's a link to the thing. When I stream them on to the Twitch, I actually have a little box on my Twitch page, which is totally fine, according to Kevin MacLeod. He has a thing on his website that tells you what you can do. And yeah, if you're streaming it on Twitch, you can just have a little box that says, we use the following songs. It doesn't have to be only the songs you use that episode or whatever. What I do is anytime I find a new Kevin MacLeod song I'm going to use, I just add it to that box. Yeah, so other than that, Roll20 does have built-in video chat and audio chat. I used it for many, many years. I stopped using it because it was unreliable. Now, I have not used it in years, so I don't know if it's gotten any better. But bare minimum, the audio chat that's built into Roll20 is not bad. The video chat was rough. Depending on your internet connection, depending on the browser that you were using, it could cut in and cut out. It was really annoying. But it is something that is there. So, again, one of the things I really, really like about Roll20 is it's literally everything. You can run an entire game out of Roll20 and not have to open up a single extra window. You can have all of your monsters in there. You can customize and create your own monsters. You can use monsters that already exist. You can put in monsters from the monster manual or anything manually. Like, there's just so much stuff that you can do, and there's literally, you don't need any other programs whatsoever. It's really nice. That being said, the new UI and the new interface is really nice. It's still not the most intuitive interface in the world. It has gotten a lot better, but it's not phenomenal. And depending on how you're using it, it may be annoying to you. It may not be annoying to you. It all depends on how you use it. But it does have a little bit of a learning curve. So that is Roll20. Moving on. This may become a long video. Who knows? I'm gonna see if I can't find. Really? I'm just trying to get a link so I have something more than just my own memory. There we go. We got Foundry. We've got Tabletop Simulator. Shard. Dice Weaver's a new one. Where is it? Tailspire. We'll talk about Tailspire. That's a nice one. Sorry, I'm just getting everyone that I can that I am somewhat familiar with. So, that being said, let's move on. I'm going to take a drink. The next group, or the next one, is called Fantasy Grounds. Fantasy Grounds is, again, it's something that I'm going to open up Steam real quick because I think Fantasy Grounds is the one that I tried. Fantasy Grounds has been around for a while. I'm going to actually look here because I found a nice website that lists all these different ones, and it's kind of nice. So yeah, released in 2004. So Fantasy Grounds, I believe, predates Roll20 by, only by about a decade. Fantasy Grounds has been around for a very, very long time. It is a cheaper option than Foundry, but it is also, there's a reason why it is. Let's go Fantasy Grounds. Fantasy Grounds Unity. Oh, that was the one I was looking at. Yeah, it was Fantasy Grounds Unity. Then what about... What was the other one I was thinking of? Did I not look at Foundry? Foundry. I guess Foundry... Oh, Foundry isn't on. Interesting. Yeah, Foundry isn't on Steam. So we'll deal with that in a second. So Fantasy Grounds. So I was right. So Fantasy Grounds, now the new version of it is Fantasy Grounds Unity. Again, it has been around since 2004. So I know a lot of people that use it for no other reason, and they don't need any other reason, other than they have been using it for nearly 20 years. Again, this is its 20-year anniversary. So this is a tabletop that has been around for a very, very long time. Because of that, it is very rough around the edges. Like I said, Fantasy Ground, not Foundry. Fantasy Ground. Fantasy Ground, the interface in and of itself is extremely unintuitive. And again, part of that is because I'm very familiar with Roll20, and so I expect things to work kind of how Roll20 works, because Roll20 it's not the most intuitive thing in the world, but once you get it, everything kind of makes sense. And Fantasy Ground just doesn't. There's a lot of things where you have to right click on something or hold and click on something to get a menu to pop up to do something that really shouldn't involve that. But because we're using something that has existed for 20 years, and I'm assuming that's why Fantasy Grounds Unity exists, is probably because they upgraded to a new system because they've been making it for 20 years. So yeah, Fantasy Ground in and of itself is it's very, very popular. Like I said, mostly because it is very, very old and has been around for a very, very long time. But it doesn't have a lot of the features, or at least it didn't. I want to see if they list more about how this stuff works. Bundles, as far as I can tell, and again, if somebody is more familiar with Fantasy Grounds, feel free to chime in the comments here. But as far as I can tell and as far as I can remember, there are some free things that are built into Fantasy Grounds. Things like, I believe the 5th edition SRD exists in there, so stuff like that is nice. But for the most part, if you want to do something on Fantasy Grounds, you have to buy it, including playing the game itself. Fantasy Grounds, just to be able to play the game, costs $40. And that is just to get into the game. Whether you're a player or a dungeon master, it's going to cost you $40 on its own. Now, if you want to run games, now they do also, or at least they used to have a subscription where you could pay like $10 a month to be able to access this, says it, instead of $40 for a just permanent license. Either way, it's going to cost you money. In addition to that, if you are the dungeon master and you want to be able to run games without forcing everyone to pay $40 to play in it, you can buy what they call an ultimate license, which costs, you first have to buy the actual license itself for the game, and then it is another $110. So grand total, if you want to be able to run games without everybody that shows up at your table having to fork over $40 before they're even allowed to create a character, you need to pay $150 just to do that. In addition, and this is the thing that I've always found just exceptionally silly. At one point, they used to have a button, because on Steam, they used to have a button that was just add all DLC, and it would tell you how much it would cost to get all the DLC. I think they don't do that anymore for specifically for Fantasy Ground, because as of right now, there are 2,903 different DLC packs for Fantasy Grounds on Steam. And they range in price from about $5 up to an upwards of $60 or $70, depending on what you're getting. And those are everything from adventures that you can buy for various things, like the D&D Adventures League Season 9 Adventure 19. It's called Fang and Claw. You can buy it for $5 on Fantasy Grounds. And there is a benefit to doing that. It comes with the maps already preloaded. So if I wanted to run this on Roll20, I would have to buy the adventure. You generally can buy all the D&D Adventure League stuff on the DM's Guild. That's the official place where you can buy it. The DM's Guild partners with a lot of different companies, including Fantasy Ground, for people to be able to kind of cross-publish to make it easier. Roll20, you can do the same thing. If I was to just buy the PDF from the DM's Guild, or what I used to do when I used to run conventions and that, part of running the convention was the convention would purchase the adventures for the players or for the DMs that they were running. Some conventions do this, some conventions don't do that. The one that I used to run, we purchased the adventures for the DMs as kind of a thing, because they were generally only about $5 a piece. So what you would normally get is either a PDF or a printed out copy of all this stuff. And if I wanted to use that on Roll20 or Fantasy Ground or any of these other things, you would have to digitize the map in some way, shape, or form, and then you would have to transfer it into Roll20 or Foundry or something. And then, because they all have grids built into them, and all the maps are going to have grids on them so that you can use minis on them, if you want the digital grid to fit with the map grid, you have to sit there and finagle and count and crop and do all these other things to make it work. If you buy it directly through Fantasy Grounds, if you buy it directly through Roll20, none of that has to happen. You just click on the map, it's automatically loaded, and if there are things that are built into the system, like fog of war or lighting effects or things like that, a lot of these things will have that already built into the digital version of it. I'm not saying all of them do, but there are definite benefits to purchasing adventures through Fantasy Ground, through all of that. And then again, if you want to play, let's say you want to play the, let's see if I can find 13th Age. 13th Age, I still have one more video to make for 13th Age. 13th Age is the RPG that I'm currently doing Designing New Dragons on. If you want to play 13th Age in Fantasy Ground, you have to purchase the 13th Age DLC. That gives you access to the character sheets, that gives you access to all of the content so you can create the characters. Because it has been an extremely long time since I have used Fantasy Grounds, I do not know how robust their customized content is. I would assume they have to have something in there that allows you to make your own character options and stuff like that. And so with that, you could manually put everything in there. I assume, again, I don't know. I haven't used Fantasy Grounds, and I'm not going to spend $40 on it to do a single video. Yeah, and for something like 13th Age, both 13th Age and 13 True Ways, which is basically the core book of 13th Age, and then the one expansion that came out for 13th Age, are all freely available online. The people that make 13th Age have released all of it as part of their system reference document, basically their version of the OGL. They have that all available for free. If you want to play 13th Age and have access to just about everything that exists as far as character options are concerned, you can do it 100% for free, which is fine on Roll20. On Fantasy Grounds, it just doesn't work that way, and that's one of my biggest issues with the Fantasy Grounds. Like I said, it came out in 2004, so it's rough around the edges. I would assume the Unity version is probably a lot better, but I watched... what was it? Dale Kingsmill, friend of the channel, buddy of mine. She played my Power Rangers RPG, and I love her to death. I think she's an amazing person. I got to watch her play in a 4th edition campaign using Fantasy Grounds. And again, it took the players so long to figure out how to use the interface that it detracted immensely from me being able to watch a live play. And that happens a lot. I've seen it with Roll20. A buddy of mine uses Roll20 to run his RPGs, and he went and he spent the money so that he can use the lighting effects and all that stuff. And because of that, his players had this massive barrier to entry of being able to figure out how to move their characters around and how to do everything, because again, Roll20 is fairly intuitive, but when you add on a bunch of additional optional systems, it becomes a bit of a clusterfuck. And then attempting to follow along with what was going on when their line of sight and everything is built in there, where this is another thing that annoys the hell out of me about the built-in line of sight on Roll20. It doesn't show you everything within like 30 or 60 feet of your character. It shows you a tiny vision cone, and you have to spin your character around to be able to see what's going on, which isn't how vision works. I mean, yes, we do have a field of view, but we have peripherals, and something over here, which isn't technically in my field of view, is not complete blackness. I can see that I'm currently holding up 3 fingers, and I can see it there, but I can also see it in my peripheral. 1, 2, 3, and I don't have to be able to see that, but on Roll20 you can. I have no idea if that's the same thing on Fantasy Ground, but like I said, the big downside to Fantasy Ground is it's a 20-year-old tabletop, virtual tabletop, and it is unbelievably expensive. You have to buy everything in there. I'm gonna check to see if there's like a Steam Workshop or something like that for this. There we go. Nope, that's the. It's not a Steam Workshop. So Steam Workshop, if you're not unaware, Steam Workshop is a way for people to kind of create their own content for games that are on Steam. As far as I can tell, it does not look like there is any workshop. Which means if you're using Fantasy Ground and you want to like sell your own content, you can't. Unless you find a way to officially partner with Fantasy Grounds and officially publish things through them, which is a bit of a nightmare doing that with any Kick company. You are not going to be able to publish your own stuff on Fantasy Ground unless, again, you go through something like the DM's Guild or something like that. But even then, you're very much limited in what you're able to publish. Like, the content that I put on the DM's Guild are two classes and a subclass. I can't publish that on Fantasy Grounds, and I can't publish that on Roll20 because they don't have a way for me to change it into content. My license with the DM's Guild doesn't allow me to publish classes on other things. So, yeah. Anyway, that's Fantasy Grounds. Like I said, a lot of people really, really like it. I'm just not one of them. So, yeah. Moving on. I'm going to try and make this not a 4-hour-long video. The next one, the one I was supposed to look up, and I instead looked up Fantasy Ground, Foundry. Foundry is a little bit newer. It was released in 2020, so very much newer. I'm actually gonna look. Roll20. Yeah, Roll20 came out in 2012. And I think I started using it in like 2014, maybe. So wow, I guess it's been maybe not until 2015, but it's been almost a decade that I've been using it. Fantasy, like I said, Foundry came out 2020, so it's only been around for a little under 4 years. It costs money. And as far as I can tell, they have an overview video and all these other things that you can do. Over 200 supported gaming systems. Knowledge base. What I'm looking for is... Yeah, I know. Oh, really? That's what you don't like. Okay, I get it. Fine. So D&D recently partnered with Foundry to release official stuff. It was one of the things that kind of confused me because I thought they already had a partnership. No, they have a partnership with Fantasy Grounds. So now Foundry has some official stuff from D&D. And as far as I can tell, there's again, this is another thing where you purchase Foundry systems and modules. There we go. So you purchase from Foundry, and then let me see. There we go. Go to D&D 5e. I'm just going to look this up before I say the wrong thing. So it looks like the basic, like character sheets and stuff like that seems to be stuff that you can just download from Foundry. It costs $50 to buy Foundry. So again, another thing that requires you and your players to be able to buy. And then you can buy official adventures as well, which will run various price points. But again, they'll come with, yeah. So it's $30 right now. They only have Phandelver and Below the Shadowed Obelisk, which is one of the newer D&D 5th edition adventures. They're planning on bringing more. Like I said, they just partnered with it. So again, Foundry. My understanding of it, and I believe they actually have a web demo. So I want to see. Game Master, join game session. Really? Password for player accounts, Foundry. Okay, let's go player 1. Now can I do this? This is starting to annoy me. That. There. No, I don't want to do that. So I'm just loading this up so I can get a little bit better idea about what's going on here. All right, so the interface in and of itself is pretty. Like, there really isn't another way to say this. This is a very, very pretty interface. It gives me very strong RPG vibes, like MMO vibes. You have a little hotbar along the bottom. Section no longer exists. It's not great right now. I'm assuming if you're not doing the web demo, it doesn't screw up this bad. But as you can see, you can, or you can't see. But what I have here, like, they have a pretty cool little, like, landing page. They have controls for tokens that don't exist on here, which is kind of cool. Heroes. Hero is Ezrin. So I have a very pretty looking character sheet. This is using Pathfinder 2nd edition. And it looks very, very similar to the character sheets that are shown in the book. If you guys have never looked at the Pathfinder 2nd edition core book, it is freaking gorgeous. Everything about it is so incredibly pretty. It's an interactive... Yeah, it's got everything that you would want from a virtual tabletop. It's really easy to kind of move your characters around. You can zoom in and out exactly the way that you would want to. Yeah, I mean, it's a nice looking virtual to the tabletop. You've got your little hotkeys on the bottom, so if you want to cast a spell or something like that, it's pretty simple to do it. It's got virtual dice and everything like that. So, you know, if I'm comparing it to Roll20, it's probably a little bit prettier than Roll20. But again, the intuitive factor is not quite what I'd like. But again, I'm using a web demo, not the actual game. And again, everything in it costs money. And that's the thing that always makes me a little bit wary about these, is because while it does look very, very pretty, and it's got like built-in line of sight and stuff like that, so that you can see what your character can see, and I think it does it a little bit better than Roll20 does. And in this particular map that I'm looking at right now, they actually have a little snow effect on it because you're outside in the snow. So it's very, very pretty. It seems to work well enough to do something, and if I want to do just a regular roll... Do they not have a I just want to roll button? If they do have a I just want to roll button, I don't see it anywhere. And yeah. So overall, it's very, very pretty, but again, as far as I can tell, it doesn't really have anything on here that I can't do in Roll20 for free. And that's always going to be the thing. It also has music, apparently. Yeah, it looks like, again, because I can only log in as a player, I don't know if they have like a built-in music library or anything like that. If somebody's more familiar with Foundry and can let me know about that in the comments down below, I'd be really, really interested in that. But overall, like I said, it's pretty, it's nice, and I'm sure if you put enough time and effort into it, it probably turns into something pretty interesting. However, it's going to cost you money, and there's no community-created content that I can see. And for me, that's a really big downside. I like being able to create my own stuff. I also like to be able to support other people in the community that are creating awesome stuff. So, yeah, that's Foundry. Moving on. Next one up, and this one has existed for a remarkably long time. Surprisingly enough, not as long as I thought it did. Tabletop Simulator. Tabletop Simulator. I own Tabletop Simulator on Steam. It is lovely. It is literally what it sounds like. It is a simulator for a tabletop. And there are so many things on Tabletop Simulator that you can do. Like, they have official digital versions of things like Zombicide, which is it's a board. It's a really cool board game, or Super Fight. Like there's tons and tons of official digital versions of games. Like one of the games that I think is really, really fun and silly. There's a game called Boss Monster, which is exactly what it sounds like. You can buy actual, effectively digital board games for a remarkably thing. Like Tiny Epic Galaxies is there. Or what are other ones that I recognize here? I think I saw, the Red Dragon Inn, which is another really, really fun game that I used to play at my game night. In addition to that, and probably the more common thing that people use Tabletop Simulator for, is they have a massive Steam, what do you call it? A custom stuff workshop. So Steam Workshop. Let's go here. So, and the Steam Workshop has just literally everything. So the big benefit of Tabletop Simulator in and of itself is that you can use it for doing more than just playing tabletop RPGs. You can play actual board games, and tons of people use it that way. If you go to the Steam Workshop, they have game categories. Board games, 28,452. Card games, 20,952. Dice games, 4,742. Strategy games, 22,601. Role-playing games, 10,600. Original games, 8,236. Puzzle games, 951. War games, 6,981. There are tons of stuff in here. Now, some of that is overlaps, like I'm assuming board games and role-playing games probably overlaps a lot. But if I click on role-playing games, and I'm just going to go most popular of all time, we have Hero Quest, Star Wars Armada, The Red Dragon Inn, Pokemon Master Trainer, which I believe I used to own that board game. The Dark Souls board game. There's just tons and tons of stuff on here. Some of them, let's see, how can I put this lightly? Anything that you're getting off of the Steam Workshop is probably not, let's say, an official version of it. Which probably means they didn't pay licensing fees or anything like that. It probably means that the company that made the board game is not getting paid for it. So if you are going to use Tabletop Simulator to do something, buy the physical game, just so the company that makes it actually makes some money off of it. But there's tons and tons of stuff you can do on Tabletop Simulator. I have used Tabletop Simulator. I thought about using it to run my games. Never wanted to. Because while Tabletop Simulator is amazing in what it can do, and it looks, not only does it look like an actual tabletop, but it has VR support. So if you want to actually be able to sit there and like pick up your minis and create actual 3D maps, like all that stuff is possible. You can use stuff that's very similar to like Dwarven Forge. Like I said, there's tons of stuff that exists on the Steam Workshop that you can buy to be able to create your own maps and stuff like that. So you can really simulate being in this same place. However, because it can do literally just about everything, it's a physics simulator with a bunch of pre-made assets that are included with it. Because of that, it gets confusing. very, very quickly. Because it's a physics simulator, if you move your piece and you push it in the wrong spot, it can tip over. You can knock over scenery, very similar to how you could in a real thing. But because it's all digital, fixing all that stuff becomes very, very confusing very quickly. From what I remember, and again, I have not used Tabletop Simulator in probably, I don't know, 4 years. So it's possible things have changed, but from what I remember, the interface in and of itself was remarkably intuitive. A lot of it was done using right clicks, which for me works really, really well. If you're a Mac user, I guess Macs use right and left clicks now. They didn't used to. They used to only have a single button. So it used to be a little bit more difficult for Mac users. But it's remarkably simple. The other thing I like about Tabletop Simulator is the fact that it does cost money, but it's only $20, and you can buy multi-packs. And it goes on sale on a fairly regular basis. But you can buy, like, they have a 4-pack for $60. So normally four copies of it would cost you $80. You can buy the 4-pack for $60 and just send them as Steam gifts to your friends. I actually used to do that a lot back when multi-packs of games were a little bit more common. I would buy the multi-pack of the game, and then if I wanted someone to play with me, I'd go, hey, do you want to play this game with me? They're like, well, I don't own it. You do now! And so I used to do that a lot. I did that with, what was it called? It's a board game. There's a digital version of it that I can't remember what it's called. It Ends Friendships. It's really, really fun. And Talisman. There we go. Talisman, the board game. I love Talisman. I really, really do. I want to get the physical version sometime just so I can own it. But I have the digital version. I have just about everything that's ever been published for the digital version. It's a problem. I have a problem. But yeah, so Tabletop Simulator, if you want to use a virtual tabletop that you can use for more than just playing tabletop RPGs, Tabletop Simulator is where it's at. Now, a lot of it, it's not going to have things like, it's not going to have built-in character sheets, so you're going to have something else to keep track of your character sheets, which again is generally pretty simple. Have a physical character sheet, have a PDF, a form-fillable PDF, whatever you need. That and there's not going to be really any kind of automation. Like, you're not going to be able to roll initiative or click on something to make attack rolls or anything. You can roll dice. It has dice built into it, but there's not really going to be anything automated because, again, it's designed to just do a ton of different things. So yeah, it's super, super cool. I love Tabletop Simulator. Not for running RPGs, but it's really, really awesome. Anyway, moving on. I have no familiarity with Shard or Dice Weave. Tailspire. Let's talk about Tailspire. I'm not going to do Shard. Tailspire. So, Tailspire. Tailspire was something that was introduced to me actually through, what is it, Dimension 20, Brennan Lee Mulligan's tabletop thing. They did one of one of the campaigns that they did that I've not been able to watch the full campaign because it's on Dimensions 20 website and that requires money. And after the whole alpha debacle with Geek and Sundry, I refused to pay for any RPG content hidden behind a paywall. Not that I don't think Brennan Lee Mulligan makes a really good quality product, and I've got a buddy that watches all and pays his subscription, watches all the stuff that there. Says it's 100% worth it. This is not me telling you do not subscribe to Dimension 20. I think they're fabulous. I think they're wonderful. I personally will just never do paywall stuff again for tabletop RPGs. It's just because of what happened with Alpha. Which, if you don't know what Alpha is, congratulations. It's the thing that screwed over and eventually killed Geek and Sundry. Yeah. But anyway, so they did I think it might have been a Starfighter campaign, or it was some space-themed TTRPG. And they partnered with Tailspire And Tailspire actually created some custom assets for them. What Tailspire is it's a 3D virtual tabletop. It is currently in early access, but I own it. I have played around with it a little bit. It is not the most intuitive thing in the world to build in, and I've not taken the time to learn how to use all the systems in there. That being said, once everything is built, it's almost a fucking video game. I'm not kidding here, guys. Everything in there looks so good. And the physics engine in and of itself is really, really nice. I've watched people play in it. And once you get over the bit of a learning curve, specifically for making your own shit, it is unbelievably good. It's only been around since 2021, and like I said, it's currently in early access. Every month they release new stuff, and every time they release something new, I'm impressed. It's really, really cool. According to this website, it's easy to use and learn. I would slightly argue with that, but it's possible that I just haven't done the correct learning or something. Maybe I missed a tutorial somewhere. But I mean, there's just so much there. The only kind of limitations, you do have to use grid-based maps, which is not the biggest deal in the world. I work exclusively with grid-based maps. I've never really been a big fan of gridless combat and stuff like that. It creates too many issues in my humble opinion. And it 100% looks like a video game. But I mean, that's why you're using it, to be blunt. And like I said, it's really, really cool. I can't wait to see it actually get a full release. I've been thinking about using it for a single dungeon for one of my D&D games, just as a treat for the players. And it's not an exorbitantly expensive thing. Right now, it costs it's $25. So again, if we're comparing this to Fantasy Grounds and Foundry, which are the kind of standards, and they only do 2D. And then you have to buy literally everything else with it. If we're comparing this to those two, Fantasy Grounds is $40, Foundry is $50, and in addition to that, you have to buy a shit ton of other stuff in order to use them, and everything has a cost. Tailspire doesn't. As far as I can tell, it doesn't look like it's got a Steamworks or anything like that. So as of right now, there's no custom content that you can buy for it. But if I remember correctly, I believe there are websites where you can download stuff that people have already made. I think there's a few that already exist, so you don't have to make your own stuff if you don't want to, which is very, very nice. Otherwise, like I said, they just have a shit ton of assets in there. And it has a lot of... It has a lot of automation and stuff that just makes everything work really, really cool. And again, it's 3D maps. And I think that's the thing that is the most interesting and amazing to me personally. Because again, there's only so much you can do with 2D maps and stuff like that. And I like them, don't get me wrong, but yeah. Anyway, moving on. Check out Tailspire, guys. Even if you don't use it, it's really, really interesting. The next one, after I take a drink. This is one I personally haven't used, but I keep hearing about over and over and over again. Let me see if I can find it on here. RPG Engine, Owlbear Rodeo. Okay, so this is another free one. It's called Owlbear Rodeo. Came out in 2020. It's all online based, I believe, so you don't have to download a computer or anything like that. There's no built-in character sheets or anything, so as far as virtual tabletops are considered, it's just basically a map and token program. But it has its own kind of charm, like you can use animated maps and stuff like that. It has a mobile app that you can use, which, like I said, Roll20 has a mobile app and it doesn't work all that well. Yeah, it is. It is mostly, basically, exclusively just for simulating a map. So as far as other things that are really necessary for running a an online RPG like ambiance and stuff like that, you're going to have to get creative with how to do that. It's again another reason why I tend to prefer Roll20 over anything else because all that stuff's included. But it's really pretty. It's free, and it has things like initiative trackers. It has things like dice rolling and stuff like that. You're just going to have a separate place to keep your character sheet and stuff like that. Which, as we keep going on with other stuff like Roll is one of the newer ones that's come out, and it's on here. Came out in 2021. And above VTT is interesting. It's apparently an integration with D&D Beyond. I have no idea how it works, but it's a thing. It's a plugin for, I think, Chrome. A lot of them are going to basically run into the same problem, where all they do is give you different flavors of a tabletop, dice roller, and token thing. If you're looking for something to be a complete running your tabletop RPG in a single program, you're really going to be wanting to stick with either Roll20, Foundry, or Fantasy Guga Grounds. And each one's going to have pluses and minuses, and 9 times out of 10, what it eventually turns into is which is the one that you like. Like I said, there's a lot out there. Like I said, Owlbear, what was it called? Owlbear Rodeo is a relatively new one and starting to gain some steam. Schmeppy is another one that has only been around since 2019, and some people seem to like it or not. Alchemy is one that's supposed to be coming out pretty soon here. And then obviously the D&D virtual tabletop is something that they're working on and may be phenomenal. We have no idea what's going to happen with that. We don't even know when it's going to come out. Originally, I thought they were talking about having a 2024 release date, but with the fact that 1D&D is supposed to be coming out this year as well, it may get pushed back. It may launch simultaneously with 1D&D, and that's why 1D&D keeps getting pushed back. We don't know. But I have talked to people that have actually used it, and it's pretty. It's very pretty, it's very nice, and it seems to work very, very well if what you want to do is run Dungeons and Dragons. But the one issue with the D&D virtual tabletop is that's all it's going to do. Which, don't get me wrong, again, D&D, most popular RPG on the planet. Of the 3 campaigns that I am currently running now, and a fourth one that I'm playing in, 3 of those are D&D 5th edition. So there's a lot of people that exclusively play D&D. So for something like that, the D&D virtual tabletop is going to work really, really well for them. But as of right now, and this video has gone on way, way too long. As of right now, the 3 that are probably going to give you the best kind of experience, all-in-one kind of experience, are going to be Roll20, Foundry, and Fantasy Grounds. They all have official partnerships with Wizards of the Coast and D&D, so you can buy stuff directly from Wizards of the Coast through them to have all the maps and character options all in there. Roll20 has their own character creator now, which is remarkably good. Foundry, I believe, has a character creation thing in there. Fantasy Grounds has character sheet and stuff and all that stuff in there. So they're all nice. I don't know about music in either Fantasy Grounds or Foundry. Again, anyone that uses it, let me know in the comments down below if they have like a jukebox feature or something like that, because in my humble opinion, that is an essential part of running an online RPG. But yeah, I hope this has been nice for you guys. I hope you guys are interested in this stuff, because like I said, running RPGs online is one of my passions. I have a lot of fun doing it, and I want more people to get used to doing it because, again, from a disability standpoint, running RPGs online opens up the hobby to a lot of people that can't do it otherwise, whether it's something like me where you have psychological issues that makes it very difficult or impossible to go out in public, It can be monetary issues where you just don't have the money to be able to, go to a friendly local game store or go to conventions or stuff like that, because all of that stuff costs money. Bare minimum, it would cost gas. Or it can be mobility issues too. Gaming stores, especially if it's a popular one, if they get really, really packed, getting a wheelchair in there or getting like a motorized scooter or something like that can be extremely difficult. And that's not even to talk about how on your own computer at home you can have a bunch of other disability assistance things like screen readers, and other the things like that if you have a visual disability or anything like that. There's so many other things that you can kind of customize on your own that you can't really do in person. So I think virtual tabletops will never replace friendly local game stores and in-person gaming, but I believe they are a necessary thing for the hobby to continue. And like I said, from all the ones that I've talked about, Roll20, Foundry, and Fantasy Grounds are probably three of the best right now. And Tailspire is coming up on their on their tails, and I hope it turns into something really cool. But anyway, that is gonna be all for me today. If you guys would like me to actually do like maybe this, if enough people are interested, I would totally be good with doing either a standalone video or maybe as one of my daily vlogs. I will literally walk people through how to use these various tabletops. For Fantasy Ground and Foundry, since both of those cost money that I don't have, it will take longer for me to be able to do those. But I think both of them have demos that will at least let me be able to show you guys the very basics of how they work. And maybe I can find a friend that has one of those like ultimate licenses where I wouldn't have to own it to join their game, and I can show you through that. So if that's something you guys are interested, you want actual like videos of how these things work, let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, that's all for me today. I will see you guys tomorrow. All right, bye bye.